What if everything you believe about billionaires is wrong? What if the wealth, the lifestyle, the success they show you is just the surface? Scroll through social media and you'll see them everywhere, flying in private jets, lounging on mega yachts, wearing luxury watches, giving motivational speeches. It looks like a dream life. But here's the truth, you're only seeing 10% of it. Because what they post isn't real life. It's a performance. A carefully designed image polished by PR teams and social media experts. Every post, every quote, every candid moment is part of a bigger strategy to stay admired, trusted, and untouchable. But behind those posts, there's a hidden world. One filled with silent power plays, strict routines, constant control, and deep fears no one talks about. This isn't about jealousy or criticism. It's about seeing through the illusion. Because if you've ever thought billionaires live the perfect life, the truth is they're living a life you were never meant to understand. And in this story, we're going to explore what really happens when the cameras are off. 1. The billionaire persona carefully manufactured. Have you ever noticed how billionaires always seem calm, confident, and in control even when the world around them is in chaos? That's not a coincidence. That's a curated identity. See, the public image of a billionaire isn't just about showing wealth. It's a carefully built version of themselves managed by professionals, PR teams, brand advisors, social media experts. These people don't just post updates. They plan narratives. They choose every word, every appearance, every headline. Why? Because in today's world, image is everything. A single viral moment can impact a billionaire's business, their stock value, or even their influence over others. So they don't leave anything to chance. You won't see random selfies or emotional rants. You'll see calculated messaging. Posts about success, positivity, or big ideas. Even their casual content is usually part of a bigger plan to stay inspiring, trustworthy, and admired by the public. This is why some billionaires never post anything personal. They speak through quotes. They highlight achievements. They let others praise them, while staying just distant enough to keep the mystery alive. Some even create two versions of themselves, one for the boardroom and one for the internet. The boardroom version is sharp, demanding, and decisive. The online version, calm, motivational, and humble. But both are masks, designed for different audiences. Controlling how the world sees them gives billionaires a powerful advantage. It protects their reputation, keeps their business strong, and most importantly, it makes them look invincible. Think about it. If the public sees you as a genius leader who always wins, your failures don't scare people, they surprise them. If people believe you're generous and kind, your decisions are harder to question. That's the power of image. And the truth is, many billionaires spend just as much time shaping their identity as they do building their wealth. Some even go through media training, body language coaching, and speech rehearsals before big interviews just to make sure nothing goes wrong. They're not just managing money, they're managing perception. So while you're watching their TED Talks or reading their motivational tweets, remember this. You're not just seeing a person, you're seeing a product. And behind the product is a full team making sure the image is strong, smooth, and exactly what the world expects. 2. The obsession with privacy. For all the public attention billionaires receive, you'd be surprised at how little you actually know about them. In fact, the more powerful they become, the more private their real lives get. Billionaires don't just value privacy, they obsess over it. Not because they're shy, but because privacy equals control. And for them, control is everything. Think about this. While their social media shows just enough to stay relevant, the real parts of their lives, their families, homes, routines, and even locations are kept under tight security. How? Let's start with non-disclosure agreements. Almost everyone who works for them, from personal chefs to security staff to housekeepers, signs legally binding contracts promising they'll never share a word about what they see or hear. Not on social media, not in interviews, not ever. Then there's digital erasure. Some billionaires hire specialists to scrub their data from the internet, removing addresses, personal photos, and even past associations. You won't find their real-time location online. You won't see their children's faces. And you definitely won't know where they live. They also use alias names for travel, encrypted phones for private communication, and shell companies to purchase property. Everything done quietly and strategically. Even social interactions are managed. Invitations to events are carefully filtered. Personal meetings are rare unless there's absolute trust. It's not paranoia, it's protection. When you control empires, you're a target. Privacy isn't a luxury, it's a shield. And here's where the contrast becomes clear. The part you're allowed to see, the public speeches, the charity work, the lifestyle photos, that's intentional. It's polished and planned. But the part they protect, the power meetings, the confidential strategies, the real family life, that's where the real story is. And you won't find it on any feed. Some billionaires even go as far as building entire lives that the public will never know about. Hidden properties, second identities, private investments that don't carry their names. Because once you reach a certain level of wealth, exposure becomes a risk. The more the world knows about you, the more vulnerable you become. And so, they draw a line. They show just enough to stay in control of the story. But the rest? That stays locked behind closed doors. So while millions follow their public lives with curiosity and admiration, the truth is, the real life of a billionaire happens in silence. Protected, private, untouchable. 3. Hidden daily routines and psychological patterns. You've probably heard quotes like, "Billionaires read one book a week," or "They wake up at 4 a.m. But what if I told you that's just the surface? Behind closed doors, their routines are far more intense than what's casually mentioned in interviews. In fact, many billionaires live by a set of private systems and mental rules that shape their every hour, and they rarely talk about it publicly. Let's start with microscheduling. Most billionaires don't just plan their day, they plan their minutes. Every task, call, decision, or even rest time is blocked out. It's not about being busy, it's about staying in control. When you manage massive companies and billions of dollars, wasted time equals lost money. Then there's decision minimalism. Ever noticed how some billionaires wear the same outfit every day? It's not laziness, it's a strategy. They remove small daily choices like what to eat or wear, so they can focus all their energy on bigger decisions. This habit keeps their mental space clear. Now let's talk about personal optimization. Some of them track their sleep, blood levels, energy patterns, even brain activity. Not for fun, but to gain an edge. They use personal coaches, doctors, and advisors not just for fitness or diet, but to function at the highest level every single day. And here's something people don't expect: emotional detachment. Many billionaires train themselves to stay emotionally neutral, whether they're winning or losing. They don't get too excited. They don't panic easily. This emotional control helps them make cold, rational decisions even under pressure. They avoid drama, ignore distractions, and move on quickly from setbacks. Their private routines reflect a mindset that's nothing like their public image. On social media, they may seem laid back, motivational, even fun, but in reality, their daily life is like a machine. Focused, disciplined, ruthlessly efficient. They don't wait for inspiration. They stick to systems. They don't talk much about goals, they obsess over processes. And most importantly, they don't let feelings guide decisions. They let numbers, data, and long-term strategy lead the way. It's this hidden side, the one without cameras, that truly explains their success. Not the speeches, not the lifestyle photos, but the way they train their minds and manage every hour with extreme precision. Because in their world, success isn't about luck or motivation. It's about discipline, repetition, control, and while it may look effortless from the outside, behind the scenes, it's a life built on structure most people couldn't handle. 4. Secretive networks and inner circles. Ever wonder how billionaires always seem to be a step ahead, getting deals before anyone hears about them, solving crises before the public even knows something's wrong? It's not just intelligence or experience. It's access. You see, billionaires don't operate in the same world as most people. They move inside closed ecosystems, tight, trusted circles where real power lives. These circles are built on one thing: trust. And that trust is guarded fiercely. Not just anyone gets in. Their networks include other billionaires, top CEOs, lawyers, political insiders, advisors, investors, and legacy families, people who aren't visible on your timeline but hold incredible influence behind the scenes. Within these inner circles, deals happen quietly. Decisions get made before the public even knows there's a conversation happening. This is where hidden influence takes shape. There are private summits, invite-only gatherings where billionaires meet to discuss the future of industries, governments, and technology. These aren't the flashy conferences you hear about. These are behind closed doors, off the record, and highly protected. No recordings, No media, just strategy. There are backroom deals where businesses merge, policies are influenced, and entire markets shift, all without a single public announcement until everything is already signed and sealed. This level of access gives billionaires a unique advantage. When regular entrepreneurs face risks, changing laws, economic crashes, or supply chain issues, they often struggle to keep up. But billionaires? They've already received private briefings. They've already adjusted their moves. They don't wait for news, they get the previews. And if trouble hits, they rarely face it alone. Their lawyers, PR experts, political consultants, and crisis managers are always ready. Problems get handled quietly, reputations are protected, and if needed, stories are reshaped before reaching the public. This isn't illegal, but it's hidden. It's a kind of insulation from the usual risks and pressures that most business owners and workers deal with every day. When you have that kind of network, you don't need to react, you orchestrate. Even competition is different in these circles. Billionaires don't always fight each other. In fact, many of them collaborate in ways that outsiders never see. One invests, another advises, a third pulls political strings, all working toward a shared outcome. And if one stumbles, the others step in, because keeping each other powerful protects the circle. It's like a private game with its own rules that don't apply to everyone else. The truth is, while the public watches what happens on the surface, news headlines, stock prices, public statements, the real moves are made where cameras and journalists can't go. And that's exactly how they want it. Because staying out of sight means staying in control. And in the world of billionaires, control is the most valuable asset of all. So next time you wonder how some people always stay ahead, remember, it's not always about luck. It's often about access. And access isn't given, it's protected. 5. The power behind the power. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself who really shapes the world you live in? Not just the headlines, but the laws you follow, the technology you use, even the way you think about success, health, or education. What if the answer isn't politicians or public figures, but billionaires you never see? Because here's the truth. Some billionaires don't just build companies. They shape systems. Silently, strategically, and from behind the scenes. This is the power behind the power. They fund political campaigns, not always in their own name, but through private donations, super PACs, or third-party networks. Their money doesn't just support candidates. It influences agendas. The laws passed tomorrow may be rooted in meetings that happened quietly, months or even years earlier. Then there are think tanks, organizations that produce studies, research papers, and policy suggestions. Many of them are funded or even created by billionaires. These groups shape how politicians think, how the media frames issues, and what society sees as important. It's indirect power, but incredibly effective. Let's talk about the media. Some billionaires own media outlets. Others invest in platforms that control what content is boosted or buried. That doesn't always mean censorship. Sometimes it's more subtle, like what stories get attention, which voices are heard, and how narratives are formed. The goal? Influence perception. And once you control perception, you can influence behavior. Education is another quiet battleground. Many billionaires donate heavily to universities or fund educational initiatives. Again, this sounds generous on the surface. But with money comes access and often influence over curriculum, research focus, or public messaging. Now think about technology. Some billionaires invest in or control the very platforms we use daily: social media, search engines, AI tools. These technologies are shaping how we communicate, how we shop, what we learn, and even how we vote. If an algorithm changes, your reality changes. And someone somewhere made that decision. All of this happens quietly, without a press conference, without a tweet. Why? Because real influence doesn't need the spotlight. It just needs access to the systems that shape society. And once again, the average person never sees it. You're too busy reacting to the news, unaware of who may be writing the next chapter. So here's the real question. How much of your daily life is affected by people you've never seen, never voted for, and never even heard speak? Their names may not trend. Their faces may not be public. But their money, their networks, and their ideas are often pulling the strings behind what we call reality. It's not a conspiracy. It's a quiet kind of control. Legal, strategic, and almost invisible until you start connecting the dots. Because most people are watching the stage. The real power is sitting just behind the curtain. 6. Unseen emotional landscape. We often imagine billionaires living perfect lives, private jets, luxury homes, the freedom to do anything at any time. But behind that image, behind the layers of power and privilege, there's something most people never talk about. The emotional weight of extreme wealth. Because no matter how much money you have, you're still human. And in many ways, the billionaire life comes with emotional challenges most of us can't even imagine. Let's start with isolation. Once someone becomes incredibly wealthy, everything changes, including relationships. Old friendships can feel strained. New ones are often questioned. Do they like me, or are they after something? It becomes hard to trust. Every interaction feels like it might have strings attached. Some billionaires talk about feeling deeply alone in a room full of people. Even family dynamics can shift. Children grow up shielded from the real world. Spouses struggle with public attention. Siblings compete for a piece of the empire. Over time, a quiet emotional distance builds up. And that distance can turn into something heavier, paranoia. When you've built a fortune, you also attract threats, legal, financial, even physical. That's why many billionaires travel with security teams. Their emails are encrypted. Their homes are protected by advanced surveillance. But the real fear goes deeper. What if someone leaks confidential data? What if a competitor targets their reputation? What if someone inside their circle betrays them? This constant awareness of risk, this hyper-vigilance, can take a toll. Always watching, always planning, never fully relaxed. And then there's the pressure of legacy. For many billionaires, the goal isn't just to make money. It's to matter, to leave a name behind, to build something that lasts generations. But the higher you climb, the more you fear the fall. What if it all disappears? What if your children don't want the business? What if your name becomes a headline for the wrong reasons? That pressure doesn't go away. In fact, it grows. Because the bigger your empire, the more you have to protect. And protecting it often means sacrificing other things, health, time, even emotional connection. Some turn to extreme routines. Others bury themselves in work. Many struggle with sleeplessness, anxiety, or burnout. But few ever speak about it publicly. After all, who's going to feel sorry for a billionaire? That silence creates another layer of pain. They can't complain. They can't vent without sounding ungrateful. So, they keep it in. And wear the mask. And this brings us to a hard truth: money doesn't erase fear, stress, or insecurity. It might solve practical problems, but it doesn't heal emotional ones. In fact, wealth can amplify certain fears. The fear of losing it all. The fear of being exposed. The fear of never feeling genuine love again. Some billionaires even describe their success as a kind of trap. They can't slow down. They can't step away. The world expects them to keep winning, and they expect it from themselves too. So while social media shows smiles, yachts, and champagne, behind the scenes, there may be therapists, pills for anxiety, and silent dinners in cold, quiet mansions. It's not a pity story, but it is a reality check. Because behind every empire, there's a human. And that human carries more emotional weight than most of us will ever see. So the next time you think, if I just had more money, all my problems would go away, remember this. Wealth changes your life, but it doesn't protect your heart. 7. The dark side of preparation. Let me ask you something that might sound strange. Why are some billionaires quietly preparing for the end of the world? Not as a sci-fi fantasy, not as a movie plot, but as a real, serious possibility. While most people are trying to pay bills, plan vacations, or save for retirement, a small number of ultra-wealthy individuals are preparing for collapse scenarios. And they're not just buying canned food or extra flashlights. They're taking preparation to a whole different level. Let's start with something that's become surprisingly common among the billionaire class. Luxury bunkers. We're talking about underground shelters that look more like high-end condos than survival spaces. Multiple bedrooms, private gyms, medical suites, air filtration systems, backup power, months, sometimes years of food and water. Some are built into mountains. Others are hidden in remote areas with private security and armed guards. These bunkers aren't just in case of emergencies. They're designed for long-term living, just in case the outside world becomes unlivable. Then there's private healthcare. We all know billionaires don't wait in hospital lines. But their level of preparation goes much further. Many have full-time medical teams on call. Some even have doctors, nurses, and wellness experts living on their properties or traveling with them. In times of crisis, like a pandemic, political instability, or biological threat, this setup ensures they're not depending on overloaded systems. They've created parallel worlds of safety and control where they never have to rely on public infrastructure. Some even invest in biodefense technologies, quietly, privately, including early access to vaccines, gene therapies, and cutting-edge treatments the public won't see for years, if ever. Now, let's talk about exit plans. Several billionaires have quietly bought properties in remote regions. New Zealand, rural islands, hidden valleys. Why? Because they see these places as safe zones in case of political collapse, climate disasters, or global conflict. Some have private planes always ready, fueled, crewed, and waiting on standby 24/7. If the world starts to fall apart, they don't wait around. They fly out fast, discreetly, and without warning. So, what's driving all of this? At first glance, it may sound like paranoia. But dig deeper and you'll see it's something more complex, a deep fear of vulnerability. Because once you control billions of dollars, once your name is known globally, you start seeing the world through a different lens. You see cracks others ignore. Billionaires are often the first to get briefed on global risks, economic instability, cyber threats, AI disruptions, pandemics, geopolitical shifts. They have access to insider intelligence, private risk consultants, and classified information. So when they start preparing for worst-case scenarios, it's not just a hobby. It's a reflection of what they believe could actually happen. And they're not betting on governments to save them. They're betting on themselves. Here's the part that should make all of us stop and think. What do they know that we don't? Why are some of the smartest, most informed, most connected people on the planet quietly preparing for global breakdowns while the rest of us are just going about our normal lives? Could it be that trust in public systems is fading at the very top? That the people who've built the world's biggest companies, who understand data, trends, and global networks, are quietly pulling back? Creating personal safety nets that most people don't even know exist? That's the dark side of preparation. It's not about fear, it's about control. The ability to survive and thrive no matter what happens outside the gates. It's not shown on Instagram. It's not mentioned in interviews. But behind closed doors, many billionaires are living with one eye on the now and one eye on the escape plan. And the real question we're left with is chilling. If the world's richest people are planning for collapse, what do they see coming? Because when people with power start preparing for chaos, it's worth paying attention. 8. The reality they don't want you to know. What if everything you admire about billionaires is only part of the story? Think about the last time you saw a billionaire online, smiling on a yacht, talking about productivity, sharing quotes about hustle, maybe even doing a podcast or giving advice on mindset. Now ask yourself, what were they not showing you? Because here's the truth, what you see is carefully chosen. And what you don't see, that's where the real story begins. The public image of most billionaires is a sanitized distraction. It's clean, inspiring, polished. It's designed to make you admire them, trust them, maybe even try to be like them. But behind that image is something most people never realize. A world built on secrecy, control, and constant management of perception. Let's break that down. Billionaires today are not just wealthy, they are brands. Their image is a business. They hire teams of image consultants, PR specialists, and social media strategists to craft a narrative that sells. And what it sells is more than luxury or success. It sells a dream, one that keeps the public looking up instead of looking deeper. The truth is, the stories they tell online are often edited for emotion, cleaned for public appeal, and stripped of anything that might reveal weakness, power moves, or ethical gray areas. But real life? Real billionaire life? It's full of tough decisions, extreme privacy, hidden influence, and deep psychological pressure. They may post a 3-minute video about waking up at 5 a.m., but they won't post about the private chefs, in-house wellness doctors, or the full staff managing every detail of their life. They may tweet about business failure and learning through the process, but they won't tell you about the political favors, strategic acquisitions, or behind-the-scenes deals that help them bounce back faster than any ordinary person ever could. They may share a motivational quote about staying grounded, but they won't show the teams protecting their every move, their fear of kidnapping, lawsuits, leaks, or internal betrayals. And yet, we believe the image. We double-tap, we share, we say, they're so inspiring, but maybe, just maybe, we're not seeing the full picture. Because for every Instagram reel that shows a private jet, there's an invisible story about how they use that jet to escape scrutiny, dodge taxes, or attend meetings that change the world without public knowledge. For every motivational video about starting with nothing, there's often a family connection, early access to capital, or a lucky opportunity most people never get. And for every post about changing the world, there's a silent reality of power being used quietly in ways that shift laws, policies, and even public opinion without you realizing it. None of this is to say that success isn't real. It is. Many billionaires work extremely hard. They take risks. They innovate. But what they choose to show you is not the whole truth. And that's where the problem begins. When the public starts to admire only the surface, we stop asking important questions. Who's really benefiting from their influence? What decisions are they making behind closed doors? What systems are they quietly shaping for their own advantage? And most importantly, what are they hiding? The biggest illusion is that billionaires are just like us, but richer. They're not. They live in a world with different rules, different tools, and different levels of access. They operate in a system they've helped design and sometimes helped rig. Yet we're shown a version that feels close, human, and even relatable. And that's what makes it powerful. So next time you see a billionaire post something online, a speech, a success story, a humble brag about failing forward, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, what part of the story was left out? What are they not telling you? And more importantly, why? Because the reality they don't want you to know is simple. Their power comes not just from what they own, but from what you believe about them. And once you start asking the right questions, you stop being a follower and start seeing the system for what it really is. That's the part that never gets posted. And maybe that's the part we need to see the most. 9. The power of awareness. Let's pause for a second. After everything we've explored, from curated identities to emotional isolation, secret networks to luxury bunkers, one truth rises to the top. Awareness is power. The world's wealthiest individuals are not just rich in money. They're rich in information, access, and control over how they are seen. They decide what to show and what to protect. They invest in privacy, not just as a shield, but as a strategy. And the more you understand that, the less power their image holds over you. You begin to see the difference between influence and illusion, between what inspires you and what manipulates you. Most people admire what's visible. The cars, the jets, the quotes, the lifestyle. But the real game? It's played in the shadows with silence, control, and deliberate omission. That's why the next time you see a billionaire posting about hustle or gratitude, ask yourself, what are they not saying? What part of their reality are they never going to show you? Because here's the part they'll never post, never tweet, never tell you in a podcast. Privacy is the ultimate luxury, and that's the one thing they'll never share. It's not money that makes them different. It's the ability to operate unseen, uninterrupted, and unquestioned. So don't envy the image. Study the silence. Understand the system. And once you do that, you take back control of your attention, your choices, and your mindset. Because in a world full of curated lives, the real power is being awake. So the next time you scroll past a billionaire's post, pause. Ask yourself, what are you really seeing? A person or a performance? Because behind the jets and speeches lies something far more complex, a world of hidden influence, silent routines, private control, and untouchable power. And while their lives may look perfect, they're living by rules most of us will never even see. This isn't about envy. It's about awareness. Because when we understand what's hidden, we finally start to see what's real.